Have you ever looked around a room and felt like everyone else knew something you didn't? The student who always answers first, the teacher who never seems unsure, the friend who somehow has their future planned, the couple who look perfectly happy, the businessman in an expensive suit, the influencer smiling into a camera. From the outside, it feels like everyone has a map, except you. Maybe you've even had that thought before. What if everyone has life figured out, and I'm the only one pretending? It's a terrifying feeling, because it convinces you that you're behind. Behind in school, behind in relationships, behind in success, behind in life. But what if that feeling itself is one of the biggest illusions every human being experiences? Imagine you're watching a play. The curtains open. The actors walk onto the stage. Every line is delivered perfectly. Every movement feels natural. You sit there thinking, they make it look so easy. But what you never see is what happened before the curtain opened. The forgotten lines, the shaking hands, the arguments backstage, the actor throwing up from anxiety, the hundreds of mistakes nobody was supposed to witness. Life works exactly the same way. You only see people's performances, rarely their rehearsals. A university graduate walks across a stage wearing a smile. Nobody sees the nights they wondered if they were too stupid to continue. An athlete stands on a podium holding a gold medal. Nobody remembers the competitions they lost before anyone knew their name. A successful entrepreneur gives an interview saying, "I always believed in myself," but they never show the moments they nearly quit. We have become experts at comparing our behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. And because of that, millions of people quietly believe, "I must be broken." Psychologists actually have a name for something very similar. It's called imposter syndrome. The strange belief that your achievements aren't real, that your success happened by luck, that one day someone will discover you don't belong. The surprising part, this feeling isn't limited to students or people just starting their careers. It affects doctors, scientists, professors, CEOs, Oscar-winning actors, even astronauts. Imagine spending years training to leave Earth, passing every physical test, every psychological evaluation, being trusted with billions of dollars worth of equipment, only to sit inside a rocket, wondering if NASA made a mistake. It sounds ridiculous. Yet many astronauts have admitted exactly that. Why? Because the human brain has an interesting habit. It remembers uncertainty far more clearly than certainty. You could receive 100 compliments and one criticism. Guess which one follows you home? Our ancestors survived because they noticed danger, not because they noticed comfort. Listen, thousands of years ago, ignoring a threat could mean death. Ignoring a beautiful sunset changed nothing. Your brain still works that way today. It scans your life, looking for problems, looking for risks, looking for reasons why you might fail. The strange thing is, your brain isn't trying to make you miserable. It's trying to keep you alive. But the world changed faster than our minds did. The same brain that once protected us from predators now spends hours convincing us that we aren't successful enough, popular enough, beautiful enough, smart enough. Every notification, every social media post, every achievement someone else shares becomes another piece of evidence against ourselves. Open any social media app. Within 5 minutes, you'll probably see someone buying their dream car, someone announcing an engagement, someone traveling across the world, someone opening a business, someone graduating, someone celebrating. Your brain quietly begins collecting comparisons. They're younger than me. They're happier than me. They're richer than me. They're doing better than me. But here's what nobody tells you. Social media isn't fake. It's incomplete. Imagine judging someone's entire life by watching only the best 30 seconds of every single day. Of course they look happy. Of course they look confident. Nobody uploads the moment they cried alone in the bathroom. Nobody posts the panic attack before the interview, the argument that happened 5 minutes before the smiling family photo. Not because they're lying, but because human beings naturally want to be remembered for their brightest moments. And somewhere along the way, we forgot that everyone else is doing exactly the same thing. Maybe the person you're comparing yourself to is also comparing themselves to someone else. Maybe the confident student secretly believes they're not intelligent enough. Maybe the successful businessman lies awake wondering if everything could disappear tomorrow. Maybe the perfect couple spends nights questioning whether they're really happy. Maybe the people you admire are just better at hiding their fear, because pretending confidence and actually feeling confident are two completely different things. And that realization changes everything. If pretending confidence isn't the same as feeling confident, then why does almost everyone do it? The answer begins long before social media existed. Imagine you're 12 years old. It's your first day at a new school. You don't know anyone. You don't know which classroom is yours. You don't know where to sit. So what do? You look around. You watch everyone else. How they walk, how they talk, how they laugh. Without realizing it, you begin copying them. Not because you're fake, because your brain is trying to survive. Psychologists call this social learning. Human beings weren't born knowing how to fit into society. We learned by observing other people. Think about how a baby learns language. Nobody hands them a dictionary. They simply listen, copy, repeat, again and again. Confidence works the same way. Very few people wake up one morning suddenly fearless. Most people learn what confidence looks like long before they ever feel it. That's why confidence can sometimes look like pretending. Not because someone is lying, but because they're practicing. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. The first few times, you wobble. You overthink every movement. Your balance feels unnatural. You might even look ridiculous. But eventually, something changes. The movement that once required your full attention becomes automatic. Confidence grows in exactly the same way. At first, it feels forced. You introduce yourself even though your heart is racing. You speak in class even though your voice shakes. You go to the interview even though you're convinced you'll embarrass yourself. From the outside, people think they're so confident. From the inside, you're hoping nobody notices how scared you are. Here's the strange part. The brain doesn't always separate action from identity. The more you repeatedly act in a certain way, the more your brain slows. A why begins believing, this is who I am. That's why confidence isn't usually discovered. It's built, one uncomfortable decision at a time. There's a famous story from ancient Greece. A young man once asked the philosopher Aristotle, "How do I become courageous?" He expected a complicated answer. Instead, Aristotle simply replied, "By doing courageous things." At first, that sounds too simple, almost disappointing. But modern psychology suggests he may have been right. We often believe we must change how we feel before we change how we act. I'll speak up. Once I become confident, I'll start creating videos. Once I stop being afraid, I'll chase my dream. Once I'm ready. But what if we've had the order backwards all along? What if action creates confidence instead of confidence creating action? Researchers have found something fascinating. People who repeatedly face manageable fears often become less afraid over time, not because fear disappears, but because the brain quietly updates its expectations. I survived that. I survived that too. And somehow, I survived this as well. Eventually, the fear loses its authority. This doesn't mean pretending is always healthy. There is a dangerous kind of pretending too. Pretending you're happy when you're falling apart. Pretending you're okay because you don't want to burden anyone. pretending everything is perfect, while silently drowning. That kind of pretending doesn't build confidence. It builds loneliness, because nobody can help. A version of you that doesn't exist. Maybe that's why some of the funniest people carry the deepest sadness, not because they're dishonest, but because they've become so good at protecting everyone else that nobody realizes they need protecting too. And perhaps that's the greatest irony of being human. We're terrified of being judged for the very insecurities almost everyone secretly shares. The student who thinks they're stupid, the athlete who thinks they're weak, the artist who thinks they're talentless, the parent who worries they're failing, the teacher who wonders if anyone is actually learning. Different lives, different stories, the same quiet question. What if I'm not enough? Maybe humanity has never been divided by intelligence or wealth or success. Maybe we've always been united by uncertainty. And once you realize that, you stop seeing people as perfect. You begin seeing them as human. And strangely, that makes the world feel a little less lonely. But there's still one question left. If almost everyone feels uncertain, why do some people still seem completely fearless? The answer has almost nothing to do with confidence and everything to do with what they're afraid of losing. If almost everyone feels uncertain, then why do some people seem completely fearless? Look at the entrepreneur who quits their stable job, the athlete stepping into a championship, the musician walking onto a stage, the person who moves to another country, knowing nobody. From the outside, it looks like courage. But if you ask many of them, they'd probably tell you something unexpected. They were terrified. The difference wasn't that they felt less fear. The difference was they feared something else even more. Imagine standing at a crossroads. One path is familiar, safe, predictable. The other is uncertain, difficult, full of risk. Most people assume the brave person chooses the second path because they're fearless. But often, they choose it because staying still has become even scarier. The fear of failure is powerful, but there's another fear that quietly grows stronger every year. The fear of regret. There was once a nurse named Bronnie Ware. 4 years, she worked with people who were nearing the end of their lives. She listened to thousands of conversations from people who knew they didn't have much time left. Later, she wrote about the most common regrets she heard. What surprised her wasn't what people regretted. It was what they didn't. Very few people said, "I wish I had worked one more weekend." Nobody said, "I wish I had spent more time impressing strangers." Instead, again and again, people said things like, "I wish I'd had the courage to live the life I wanted. I wish I hadn't cared so much about what everyone thought. I wish I'd spent more time with the people I loved." Notice something. Their greatest regrets were almost never about failure. They were about hesitation, about waiting, about choosing safety until there was no time left to choose anything at all. That's the strange thing about fear. When we're young, fear tells us, if you try, you might fail. But when we're older, fear changes its voice. It whispers, "What if you never tried at all?" One version of fear lasts a moment. The other can last a lifetime. Maybe that's why confidence isn't the goal. Maybe courage isn't the goal either. Maybe the goal is simply refusing to let fear make every decision for you. Think about your own life. How many opportunities have disappeared? Not because you weren't capable, but because you convinced yourself you weren't ready. How many conversations never happened because you overthought them? How many dreams quietly faded while you waited for confidence to arrive? The truth is, confidence has terrible timing. It rarely shows up before the first step. It usually appears after. After the awkward conversation, after the first failure, after the second attempt, after the 100th repetition, confidence is often the reward, not the requirement. And maybe that's why everyone looks like they're pretending. Because in a way, they are. The teacher giving their first lesson, the doctor treating their first patient, the parent holding their first child, the artist sharing their first creation. Nobody begins feeling like an expert. They become one by surviving enough moments where they felt like they weren't. Maybe growing up isn't the process of becoming someone who has all the answers. Maybe it's becoming someone who's comfortable, living without them. One day, you'll realize the people you admired weren't fearless. They were simply willing to be beginners, to look foolish, to make mistakes in public, to keep going, even while doubting themselves. And that's when something inside you changes. You stop asking, when will I finally feel ready? And start asking, what can I do today? Even if I don't, because maybe the people who change the world aren't the ones who waited for certainty. Maybe they're the ones who learn to walk while uncertainty followed beside them. So the next time you look around a room and everyone seems more confident than you, remember this. Someone is looking at you, thinking the exact same thing. The student you admire feels behind. The friend you envy has insecurities they've never spoken about. The successful person you follow online still has nights where they wonder if they're enough. You're not surrounded by people who have life figured out. You're surrounded by people doing their best to figure it out, just like you. Maybe everyone really is pretending, but perhaps that's not a weakness. Perhaps it's how human beings learn, not by waiting until they become fearless, but by pretending they're brave long enough for one day to realize they actually are.